everybody, it's Rebecca Virginia, and today I'm going to show you how to do 4 farmhouse Valentine's Day DIYs. The first project is a heart using a DIY crackle paint method. Here's what you'll need to make your own. The first step in this DIY is to sand off all of the glitter that's on the sign because you want a smooth surface for painting. Next up, I took a red paint because that's the color that I want to show through on the crackle, but you can decide whatever color that you would like, but just note that that is the color that's going to be cracked and showing through. And I did about, I think, 3 coats because it's a pretty thin paint and my sign was dark and had a lot of lettering. You don't have to have it completely opaque, but you want it mostly covered with the paint. Now we are going to begin doing our crackle paint method. So first off, I'm just taking some liquid glue from the Dollar Tree. This is just the Jot brand, so you don't need anything fancy. And I am just smearing this on the heart. And as you can see, there's different layers of thickness to the glue. You want to spread it on actually pretty messy because crackle isn't uniform. When it happens naturally, it's going to be different layers of crackle. So having the thin and the thick parts are going to give you different textures on the heart. Next is the tricky part because you want to dry your glue about 75% of the way. I actually don't have a heat gun, so this is me just using my hair dryer, and I ended up using a high setting and drying it for 60 seconds. If you didn't want to count for 60 seconds, you can kind of tell because the glue will actually start to bubble up and wrinkle. It's kind of weird looking, and that's how you know that it is almost dried. Once the glue has reached this semi-dried state, you're going to immediately paint over it with some chalk paint. And you can kind of see that I'm more so dabbing the paint on rather than really using a heavy hand and dragging. And the reason is I don't want to burst the glue bubbles. They're kind of fragile in this state, so I just want to delicately go over them because I don't want to mix the glue with the paint. I just want to put the paint over top of the glue. Now you can just let the paint air dry and do its work and crackle will happen, but this was the first time I had ever tried crackle paint and I was really excited to see if it would actually work. So I again took my hair dryer because I wanted it to dry super fast, and as you can see it did start to crackle and the red started to poke through. That's because when the glue dries it will then crack the paint. So once I was happy with how the bottom of the heart turned out, I figured I can go ahead and finish doing the crackle on the rest of the heart. So I am again very messily putting down the glue because I want those varying levels of thickness and using my hair dryer to dry it about 75% of the way, or 60 seconds. Again, I am using white chalk paint for my top layer. I'm not sure if you're able to use regular acrylic paint. When I tried this, I used chalk paint, and everything that I had read online said that you needed to use chalk paint, so you can give it a try with acrylic, and if you do, let me know in the comments down below if it worked for you. But otherwise, I would suggest only using chalk paint as your topper on the glue. And this right here is a really good example of those glue bubbles that will form, and you can see how I'm really delicately going over it because I don't want to pop that bubble. And of course, I had to put in a few more clips of the paint and the glue crackling because I just think this effect is so cool and I'm definitely going to be using it in more of my DIY projects in the future. Again though, you don't need a hair dryer or a heat gun. The paint and the glue will do this effect on their own. The heat doesn't add anything other than speeding up the drying process. As our last section of the wood heart is drying, it's time to move on to the clothespins because I want to paint these. So I had what I thought was a genius idea to put the clothespins onto a kebab stick, and that way I could hold the stick and paint them effortlessly. And that worked for about 1 clothespin, and then they just started flying off of this kebab stick. So I realized I just had to do it the kind of difficult way, so I just attached the clothespins to my fingers and I painted them that way. I'm sure that there's an easier way to do this, but this is the way that I went with. And it was kind of funny because it looked like I had these really super long and sharp red nails on, so I was having fun with it at least. Once the clothespins were painted red and fully dried, I pinned them onto the wood heart, and then I moved on to making a layered bow. To start off my layered bow, I took some red buffalo check ribbon that I had from way back in the fall at the Dollar Tree when they stocked it, so I was able to use that, and then I just layered on some burlap and satin bows on top. After trimming my bows so that I had a bit more room to add pictures, I went ahead and added a jute hanger. All I did was hot glue a little bit of jute to the back so that I could then hang my heart frame. The last step is to add some pictures of your choice to our wooden heart. I think if you have a Polaroid camera, that size of picture would fit perfectly. I unfortunately don't, so I just went ahead and added some smaller pictures that I took last spring. The second DIY is a Grapevine heart topiary. Here's what you need to recreate it. To start off this Valentine's Day topiary, I took a clay pot from the Dollar Tree and painted it white. Also, if you've been enjoying these Valentine's Day videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell. While my clay pot is still drying, I'm moving on to our rustic heart. So I found this really pretty purple garland actually at the world's largest Dollar Tree. If you haven't seen the video where I take you guys through the world's largest Dollar Tree, I'll link that above. But right now I'm just taking some of this purple berry garland and I went around the rustic heart twice and then just tied it off at the bottom. I then took a wood dowel and I painted it in a dark brown color and hot glued it to the back of our rustic heart, and this way our heart will have something to put down into the clay pot. Once the pot was dried, I thought the white looked a little plain, so I went onto Google and really just searched Victorian hearts, and this was the principle that I found. I'll link it below in case you want to use the same one. And all I did was print it out, cut it, and then I took some Mod Podge and placed it onto our clay pot. To fill up our pot so that we have something to stick that wood dowel into, I took some floral foam from the Dollar Tree, and I just cut out a small piece of it and stuck it into the pot. Then I just took some scissors and trimmed off the excess that was at the top. To cover up that floral foam and to make a base for our rustic heart, I took some Spanish moss from the Dollar Tree and just used hot glue to adhere it on top of the floral foam. After placing the dowel that held my rustic heart into the clay pot, I was able to finish adding some Spanish moss all around it. I took a pair of scissors and just trimmed off some of the Spanish moss that was looking a little crazy or coming out way too far, and then after that, the final touch was to take a thin piece of black ribbon and just make a simple bow on the top of my floral arrangement. And that's all you need to do to make your own Grapevine heart topiary. The third DIY is a home heart sign. Here are the supplies you'll need to make it. I'm starting off with these wood hearts, which came on a Dollar Tree sign in a set of 5. I used 2 of them on a previous project, and now I'm going to be using these 3. I started off by sanding off all of the glitter, and then I painted 2 of the hearts pink and 1 of them red. To change it up a little bit from the traditional Valentine's Day, instead of going with a red or pink for this home wood sign, I decided to go with gray, so I painted the entire sign in a light gray paint. These galvanized hearts came on a larger Dollar Tree sign that I took apart last week for a project, and I'm glad that I saved them because I'm going to be using them on top of the wood hearts for this DIY. If you didn't have the galvanized hearts or didn't want to use them, I also think it would be really cute to write down names of your family members on the hearts. To match the galvanized hearts on our small wood hearts, I wanted to make a faux galvanized paint effect on the heart in the home sign. So to do this, I'm just taking a little bit of a sponge and some black paint and sponging all over in lots of different directions. Then once that has dried, I go over it with some gray paint using the same technique, using it on a little sponge in all sorts of different directions. You're going to continue just repeating putting down black paint, then gray paint, then black paint, then gray paint until you reach that desired faux galvanized looking effect. To further tie in the home sign to our hearts, I took the same baby pink color that I painted 2 of the hearts, and I did that on the insides and outsides of the home sign. I didn't have to be perfect or precise when I was putting in that pink color because I ended up going over the top of the home sign with gray to get rid of any pink that might have seeped through. I was originally going to use jute to attach the hearts to our home sign, but then I found this really great wire in my craft drawer, so I doubled it up and added a little loop at the top, and that's how we're going to attach the wood hearts. Since this is a Valentine's Day video, I had to make the wire a little bit cuter, so I took a pencil and wound the wire around it so it had this springy kind of curly form to it. I stretched out the wires a little bit. I wanted the red heart to dangle not too much from the home sign, and then I wanted the pink hearts to be on the outer parts of the home sign and hang a little bit longer. I just attached them with some hot glue and that held up perfectly. And I wanted a little bit something extra still on this sign. I felt like it wasn't quite complete. So I took some scraps of fabric and pulled and frayed the edges and then tied them around the heart. As a final step on this home heart sign, I took that same wire that I used to hold up the hearts to the home sign and I just wrapped it around the jute hanger. And that's all you need to do to make your own home sign with hanging galvanized hearts. The last Valentine's Day DIY is a vinyl cling frame. Here's what you'll need to make it. This is such a quick and easy DIY and it's perfect for beginners. We're going to start by taking the glass out of the frame and then cutting a piece of scrapbooking paper using the fake photo inside the frame as a stencil. To adhere the scrapbooking paper onto the picture frame, I put down a little bit of Mod Podge and then placed the scrapbooking paper on top. I always use an old gift card to smooth out any of the air bubbles that may have formed after I put down the scrapbooking paper on top of the Mod Podge. I originally wanted to just scatter on some of this heart table scatter inside of the frame and let it just hang out at the bottom, but the frame that I chose is not a shadow box frame, so there's really not any room to put a ton of scatter at the bottom of it. So I just took a little bit of Mod Podge and placed it over that scrapbooking paper and then tried to just throw the hearts down and place them on top of the Mod Podge. I really like the way that this came out because it looks like the hearts did just scatter across the scrapbooking paper, but really we know that it's the Mod Podge keeping everything held into place. Once the Mod Podge has fully dried, it's time to put our frame back together, first by placing the glass down and then putting the backing back into the frame. The final step of this DIY is to add in our window cling. This is from the Dollar Tree and it comes in a whole sheet of other really cute and fun Valentine's Day window clings. So I just cut off some of the excess hearts that didn't fit inside the frame, and then I just pressed down the truck. And that completes all of the Farmhouse Valentine's Day DIYs. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep searching, keep creating.